As evening fell, Madeline Carter sat quietly while Mrs. Walker explained and prepped her on what to expect at the upcoming party. To be honest, Madeline hadn't anticipated the Walkers would throw a lavish event just because their youngest son had a girlfriend. This kind of extravagant spending was, well, unusual. All Madeline had to do the next day was pretty simple: greet the guests and walk around with Ethan to toast with people. Apparently, weekend parties like this were the norm for the elite. She never realized Ethan's family was this wealthy, probably on par with Jared Hayes, maybe even wealthier. Dear listeners, if you love emotional, heartwarming stories, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Let's dive into a tale that will stir your heart and stay with you long after the last word. And Henry had the nerve to go toe-to-toe with Jared? That guy must be loaded too, just way more low-key than Jared. Still, Ethan never once bragged about money at work. If Madeline had known her boyfriend was in the same league as Jared Hayes, she wouldn't have held back during all those arguments. She would have roasted him properly. Tomorrow someone will take you shopping. Mrs. Walker said, "You have to dress well. The world needs to see the future. Daughter-in-law of the Walker family is no ordinary girl." Madeline sat with her hands folded, nodding, and quietly replying, "Yes, ma'am." Truth was, she felt awkward the whole time. But Mrs. Walker was surprisingly kind and elegant. No wonder she managed the entire household so smoothly. So it turns out, not every wealthy person is an entitled villain like in fairy tales or tabloids. Guess traveling more really does broaden your perspective. After the rundown, Mrs. Walker checked her watch and said, "It's getting late. Let's get you to bed." Madeline followed her upstairs to the guest room that had been prepared in advance. But, the door was stuck. It wouldn't open. "Oh dear. The other rooms are under renovation," Mrs. Walker said, grabbing Madeline's hand and guiding her to the end of the hallway. Madeline's heart skipped. She knew exactly whose room was at the end of the hall. Her face turned pink. "Ma'am, it's my first night here. Maybe this isn't such a great idea." Mrs. Walker just waved it off and knocked on the door. "Oh please, better you get used to things early. It'll be less awkward later." Click. The door opened. Ethan stood there, slightly confused, just as his mother gently nudged Madeline forward. She stumbled right into his arms, chest first. She froze. Ethan instinctively caught her, brows furrowed, trying to piece together what just happened. "The guest rooms are all under renovation," Mrs. Walker said breezily. "Let her stay here for a few nights." "But," Ethan tried. "No but? Unless you'd rather she sleep on the couch." She cut him off with a playful wink. "Good night, kids." She vanished before he could argue further. Ethan sighed, rubbing his forehead. "She's doing it again. None of the rooms are being renovated." Madeline scratched her head, awkwardly. "So, what now?" "No backing out now," Ethan muttered. Then, with zero warning, he scooped her up over his shoulder. "Ethan!" she yelped. He carried her like a feather, shut the door with his free hand, and dropped her gently onto the bed. "Well?" he said with a teasing smile. "You think this is a good time?" Madeline was sprawled across the comforter, cheeks blazing. "Wait! We just started dating! Isn't this a little fast?" Ethan burst out laughing and sat down beside her. "Relax. I meant go to sleep." She blinked, then sat up, embarrassed and flustered. Her face was the colour of a tomato, adorably so. Ethan reached out and flicked her forehead. All right, I'm done teasing," he said gently. "Get some rest. We'll be up late tomorrow for the party." She pouted and rubbed her forehead. "Stupid old man. Always messing with me." Ahem. Ethan coughed deliberately. "This old man here's just fine. Now are you gonna sleep, or do I have to lull you to dreamland?" "Yes, sir." Madeline dove under the covers like a burrito. She kept her eyes shut tight, but could still feel Ethan moving beside her. She'd been on his bed before, like quick naps or whatever, but never like this. Never lying next to him. Her heart was doing somersaults. "Wait, has your mom gone back to her room yet?" she whispered. "Shh." Outside, Mr. Bates, the butler, whispered nervously to a maid. "Is Madam Walker still, listening at the door?" "Should I get young Master Ethan?" another staff member asked. No, sir. Go back to your room. Madam Walker, I really don't want to ruin her mood," the butler whispered urgently. "But, that room? It's soundproof." "Oh, right." Mrs. Walker cleared her throat. "Well, it is getting late. I suppose I should get some rest." She lingered by the door a little longer than necessary. "Can't hear a thing. Wonder if those two are even doing anything in there." Meanwhile, in the quiet of the massive house, Madeline wandered alone down the long hallway. She hadn't realized how grand the Walker estate truly was. Elegant, sprawling, almost surreal under the soft amber lights. Madeline wasn't even sure where she was going anymore. Each hallway looked identical, each room numbered and closed. And just her luck, she didn't bring her phone to call Ethan. She squinted ahead, trying to find the room at the very end of the hallway, the one she knew belonged to Ethan Walker. This mansion was way bigger than she remembered. Had it always been this big? Finally, standing at his door, she exhaled sharply, trying to catch her breath. Once she steadied herself, she raised her hand to knock, then paused. It was so late. What if she woke someone up? Deciding to be quiet, she turned the handle gently. Thankfully, it wasn't locked. The door creaked open. What she saw inside made her freeze. There was a man, sitting on the bed, repeatedly stabbing something with a knife. Blood sprayed upward, staining the white sheets a horrific crimson. His motions were fast, frenzied, brutal. Madeline's entire body locked. Her face drained of colour. She did the only thing her brain could process. She screamed, "Madeline, wake up!" She bolted upright, drenched in sweat, her wide eyes wild with fear. She frantically looked around the room. This was Ethan's room, and he was right beside her, panic all over his face. She clutched her forehead, trying to slow her breathing. Ethan handed her a water bottle. "Bad dream? Is it the bed? You're not used to it?" She chugged half the water without even answering, then finally nodded. "I'm fine now. It's nothing." He narrowed his eyes. "You sure?" She lay back down and pulled the blanket over herself. "After what happened with Kyle, I've had these recurring nightmares. Lots of blood, all the time. Honestly, I've just gotten used to them." Ethan's hand tightened on the blanket. His jaw clenched. He hated himself for not being there when it all happened. If he had found that scene first, maybe she wouldn't be haunted like this. The steel-sharp focus of a seasoned detective was replaced with pure tenderness as he gazed at her. Madeline peeked at him. He still hadn't laid down. "You're not going to sleep?" Ethan finally eased in beside her, his arm gently wrapping around her waist. He buried his face in her soft hair and whispered, "From now on, I'm not letting you go anywhere alone." She smiled, eyes closed. "I think you've said that, 3 times already." "I know," he chuckled. "I just want you to feel safe. Sleep. I'm here now." His warmth beside her was like a lullaby. She melted into him, slowly drifting off. He felt her relax and finally allowed himself to close his eyes. The early morning sun peeked through the curtains, waking Madeline. She rolled over and saw Ethan, already dressed and fixing his hair in the mirror. Still groggy, she rubbed her eyes. "You're up already?" He walked over and kissed her forehead. "Go back to sleep for a bit. I've got some things to handle downstairs. My brother and his wife are arriving soon." Her eyes shot open. "I should go greet them too." "Nope," he cut her off, gently pushing her back onto the bed. "You barely slept last night. Rest a little longer. I'll tell them for you. But, no buts. You need energy for dress shopping later, remember? So she did. And when she finally got up, her day was packed with makeup, outfits, and preparation. The party that night was a huge success. It was intimate, just close friends and family, but stunning. Mrs. Walker had clearly gone all out. Gourmet dishes, elegant decor. It was more than Madeline ever imagined. Tonight, she wore a delicate off-shoulder white dress, simple makeup highlighting her natural charm. Her wide brown eyes sparkled under the lights, winning over everyone at first glance. Ethan? He was beaming with pride. He didn't leave her side once. Every compliment she got, he just smiled smugly like, "Yep, she's mine." His parents were no different. After years of worrying their youngest son would end up alone, they were practically glowing with happiness. But not everyone was thrilled. Nina Monroe, standing at the edge of the party, chewed through one sweet pastry after another, glowering with every bite. Her envy was unmistakable. The event wound down late. Back in their room, Ethan had passed out almost immediately, still in his formal clothes. He'd drunk both his wine and hers. Madeline walked out of the bathroom to find him sprawled out, phone still in his hand, shirt slightly undone, chest rising and falling with every breath. That face, those arms, those lips. Her heart fluttered. Her man was dangerously handsome even in sleep. Originally, Madeline was going to wake Ethan up, but seeing him sprawled out like that gave her a mischievous idea. With a stifled giggle, she tiptoed to his desk and grabbed one of his fountain pens. She clicked the cap open and quietly approached the bed like a prankster on a mission. Within minutes, Captain Ethan Walker, fearless, stoic, now sported a thick mustache, massive Groucho Marx eyebrows, and a huge mole drawn on the corner of his lips. Trying not to laugh, Madeline raised her phone to snap a picture. But just as she got into position, Ethan's phone, lying on the pillow beside him, lit up. "Oh," she muttered. "He didn't lock it." Curiosity piqued. She leaned in closer, just in time to see a message pop up. "As long as you're happy, get some rest, okay?" Nothing seemed off until she spotted the little heart emoji at the end. Madeline's heart skipped a beat. Her smile faded, replaced by a wave of unease. The message was from an unknown number, no name saved. She stood there, phone in hand, debating. Should she wake him up and ask? Pretend she never saw it? Was she overthinking this? Before she could make a decision, another message appeared. "Don't forget to drink some water after all that wine, okay?" That was it. Her gut twisted. This wasn't nothing. Her hands moved on instinct. She tapped open the message thread, needing to know more. She wasn't the type to invade someone's privacy, but something about those messages felt too familiar, too personal. As she scrolled up, her anxious heart started to calm. It wasn't some secret lover. It was his mother. Relief flooded through her, and now she understood everything. Ethan had been texting his mom, telling her ahead of time that he was bringing Madeline home this weekend. "I'll bring my girlfriend this weekend. Her name's Madeline. Just letting you know in advance, please don't give her a hard time." His mom's reply made her smile. "Oh, please, you act like I don't love that girl already. She's the sweetest one in the family now, isn't she? After your brother's wife, of course. When I first met her, I gave her a real hard time, remember?" "Yeah, because you had to test her character and all that. But I'm serious, don't go tough on Madeline. She's kind, honest, and I'm doing my own background check anyway. You're always such a good boy, making sure everything's perfect. Mom, if you give her a hard time, I won't bring her home anymore. She's not like the other girls chasing after our money. She doesn't even know who the Walkers are. I've watched her for a long time. She's the real deal. If you didn't think she was wife material, I'd never have met her. So okay, I trust your judgment. But just in case, I'll host a little dinner so she feels welcome. Thanks, Mom. She's really happy tonight. Good. That's all that matters. Now drink some water and go to bed, will you? Madeline sat there, blinking at the screen. So, Ethan had been laying the groundwork all along, protecting her behind the scenes, making sure his mum wouldn't overwhelm her. He even pretended to be sleepy just to escape the conversation smoothly. Her heart softened. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, knock knock, someone at the door. She didn't have time to react before Ethan stirred, the sound waking him. Confused, he saw her holding his phone but didn't say a word. Instead, he shuffled over to answer the door. Wait, your face! Too late. The door opened. The butler stood holding a tray, and the moment he saw Ethan's face, he nearly dropped it. Trying not to laugh, he said through a tight smile, "Sorry to interrupt your fun, sir." Madam Walker sent up some bird's nest soup and hangover tea. Said it'll help you both rest easier tonight. My mom's still up? Ethan frowned. She's chatting with the ladies downstairs. Also reminded me to tell you, sir, please wash your face before bed. Door closed. Tray placed down. Ethan turned slowly. What's on my face? Madeline grinned. Oh, nothing. Why don't you go check the mirror? Still half asleep, he grabbed his pajamas and headed to the bathroom. Madeline! His voice roared from the bathroom. Did you draw on my face? She couldn't hold back anymore. Laughing, she called out, Oops! Sorry! The next morning, they packed up to return to work. Mrs. Walker came to see them off, smiling as they descended the stairs. Madeline, dear, have some breakfast before you leave. Good morning, ma'am. Thank you, but I think I'll eat on the road with Ethan. If we don't leave now, we'll be late. Well, all right then, she said warmly. Drive safe. After saying goodbye, Mrs. Walker turned to her son and whispered under her breath, So, 2 nights together, did anything productive happen? Ethan adjusted the button on his police uniform with an exasperated sigh. Mom, let's not. She's been having nightmares and barely sleeps through the night. Oh, really? Mrs. Walker murmured, with mild surprise. As the couple prepared to leave, Madeline actually seemed more attached to Ethan's family home than he was, especially to Mrs. Walker, who kept telling them, Come visit more often, all right? I'll be waiting for a beautiful day to plan your wedding. As they loaded up the car, Ethan spotted Natalie Moore in the distance. He quickly slipped into the driver's seat, shutting the door with finality. He wasn't looking to entertain that drama. Babe, don't forget to bring me peanut brittle next time. Natalie called from behind them as they drove away. In the passenger seat, Madeline raised an eyebrow. What is it with that girl? She clings to you like you're her dad or something. Still keeping his eyes on the road, Ethan replied casually. When she was little, she got scolded by her mom and wouldn't stop crying. I gave her some peanut brittle to shut her up. Guess she never forgot. Madeline giggled. Getting candy from a hot guy? Girl, even I'd fall for that. Ethan chuckled, but soon shifted gears, literally and figuratively. Oh, right. I got word this morning. There's been progress on that case. Madeline quietly started sipping the soup. Wait, the one involving my adoptive parents? She asked, instantly serious. Yeah, but don't mention us being together at the station, he added. I don't want people saying we're mixing personal and professional stuff. Too late, she smiled. I'm pretty sure everyone knows already. They just don't say anything out loud, because you're you. True enough, word had spread fast at the precinct, especially once the higher-ups gave the green light to reopen the investigation. A few officers were dispatched to the West Coast, to the fishing village where Madeline had grown up. Oddly, the house she'd lived in had been completely boarded up from the outside. The inside was bare, as though no one had lived there in ages. It seemed that when Madeline disappeared, her adoptive parents packed up and vanished too. Suspicious, to say the least. No public attempts to find her. No reported missing person. Just gone. By early afternoon, Madeline sat inside the station's interrogation room, with a few officers and a trauma counsellor by her side. They were reviewing old testimony collected from villagers years ago. Most people remembered the drowning of Damien Young, the younger heir to a wealthy coastal family. The case had sent shockwaves through the area a decade earlier, and many noted how strange her adoptive parents were. Despite claiming to be fishermen, they rarely went out to sea. They lived in a secluded cabin far from the rest of the village, and kept to themselves. The investigators nodded. A decade-old crime scene was hard to reconstruct. With no physical evidence, her memories were their best lead. "What about his older brother?" an officer asked. "You think he could have been involved?" Madeline froze. I don't want to falsely accuse someone. I really don't remember the face clearly. I'd be making assumptions." "That's okay," the trauma counsellor interjected gently. Let's move on. Last time we spoke, you mentioned getting a letter from the police, saying the suspect had been caught?" "Yes," she nodded. The counsellor looked concerned. "But that's just it. That letter couldn't have been real. The case was ruled an accident. No suspect was ever arrested." Madeline nodded slowly. "I've talked to Ethan about that. We think someone forged it. Someone wanted me to believe the case was closed. That way I wouldn't report anything." The room was silent for a beat. "Smart girl," one of the detectives said. "You think your adoptive parents gave you that letter?" Madeline's heart thudded. "Yes, it was them." Then she paused. "But I didn't think they were involved. I mean, they pulled me out of the water. They saved me. They raised me. If they were the ones who hurt Damien, wouldn't it have been easier to just let me die too?" An officer furrowed his brow and flipped through his notes. Something didn't add up. After flipping through a stack of reports with a rustle of pages, the detective finally looked up at Madeline and asked, "Wait, Captain Walker didn't tell you he's the one who saved you?" Madeline blinked, thrown off. "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" The officer pointed to the report. "It's here in the file. The case happened off the western coastline, technically under our jurisdiction. But it was Northwest Precinct officers who were doing training exercises in the area that day. They stumbled on the scene. One boy had already drowned. But they managed to pull out a girl, you." Madeline sat in stunned silence as the officer continued. "We now believe your adoptive parents weren't your real guardians at all. They were likely hired by the actual perpetrator, paid to keep an eye on you, make sure you didn't talk. More like jailers than caretakers." Her heart dropped. All those times she'd confided in them, begging them to go to the police, telling them what she saw that day, and they'd only nod vaguely and promise they'd take care of it. Eventually, they even gave her a letter, supposedly from the police, claiming the case had been solved. It was all a lie. For 10 years, she had been confined to a tiny, secluded home, with people she now realized had been planted there to keep her silent. Hands trembling, Madeline whispered, "They never saved me. They just kept me alive, to keep me quiet." The trauma counsellor, watching her reactions, gently asked, "Do you need to take a break? Or should we continue?" She shook her head slowly. Her breath was uneven. "I'm okay. Can we finish this tomorrow?" As she stepped out of the interrogation room, still visibly shaken, the counsellor made a few notes and turned to the detective. "Her reactions are completely consistent with those of a legitimate witness. Honest, uncoached, no inconsistencies in her statements. I think we can rely on her testimony. The officer nodded. Thanks. We'll begin tracking down that couple. I'll get a team started on scheduling their interviews. The counselor added cautiously. Just make sure to talk to Captain Walker first. If this gets out too early, the real killer might catch wind and go into hiding. I'm pretty sure he already suspects she's working with the police again. In a restroom down the hall, Madeline splashed water on her face, trying to clear her spinning thoughts. The biggest question echoing in her mind: why didn't Ethan tell me he was the one who saved me? Was the text message to his mom part of some investigation too? Was he still secretly trying to figure out if she might have been involved? The sharp ringtone of her cell phone snapped her out of it. It was one of the officers at the reception desk. You've got a visitor, the voice said. She took a deep breath, steeled herself, and stepped into the lobby. Dom, it's getting dark. What are you doing here? Dominic smiled sheepishly and held up several shopping bags. Swung by them all and thought I'd bring you some clothes and snacks. This is a few things. She blinked at the pile of bags. He shrugged, looking guilty. Look, it's hard to get any time with you lately. You're here 24/7. I miss hanging out. Madeline sighed, glancing at the bags again. She didn't want to hurt his feelings. Dominic was someone she trusted as a child. He brought back colour to an otherwise grim past. Okay, want to grab dinner or something? I just finished up. His entire face lit up. Really? Yes. I mean, cool. That'd be great. I should text Ethan though, she added. He's at a meeting for the precinct right now, but I'll let him know. He'll probably pick me up after. At the mention of Ethan, Dominic faltered for half a second, but forced a small nod. Sure, that makes sense. Madeline dialed quickly, whispering to herself, sending him the location now. That way he knows not to worry. Dominic clenched the straps of his bag but smiled through it. Do you still think of me as a stranger? She blinked. What? I mean, I get it. He's your boss and all. But doesn't it feel a little too formal? Like, you can't just grab dinner with an old friend? Dominic didn't know about her relationship with Ethan, but Madeline wasn't about to cross any unclear lines. Besides, asking Ethan to pick her up later was her way of subtly reassuring him. And herself, that this was just dinner. Across town, Ethan sat in the conference room, glancing at his watch. Madeline should be finishing her debrief by now. He opened his phone and froze the second he saw her message and location pin. He didn't even hesitate. The chair scraped backward as he shot up, bolting out the door. If that guy's just a friend, fine. But if he tries anything... The restaurant wasn't far from the precinct. A cozy, tastefully decorated spot with ambient lighting and soft music. It was perfect for de-stressing, and after the emotional interrogation earlier, Madeline felt herself finally start to relax. A bit of wine didn't hurt either. They laughed, reminisced, shared stories, just like old times. Dominic's warm, familiar presence made it easy to forget the weight of everything. Then, a half glass deep into her drink, something slipped out. You know, before I met you again, I actually witnessed someone getting drowned. Dominic blinked. Wait, seriously? She nodded, voice soft. It was before I left the orphanage. Madeline chewed her food slowly, nodding as she recalled. Yeah. After that, I got adopted and started school, in the outreach program your family sponsored. She gave a nervous laugh. Creepy thing is, I think my foster parents were tied to the killer. Dominic's eyes widened. Wait, seriously? Did you tell the police? I did, she replied. But they didn't tell me much. I'm just a witness in the case now, not working as Ethan's assistant anymore. Dominic clucked his tongue. Still, why didn't you go to the police right away? There's no physical evidence left now. Madeline took another sip of wine, stalling. It was a long story, about fake letters, and years of quiet manipulation. And honestly, she didn't have the energy to unpack it all, so she waved it off. Forget it, she murmured. But Dominic suddenly snapped his fingers, eyes lit with realization. Oh, I remember hearing something about a drowning case, like 10 years ago. Happened right on the shore? Madeline blinked. Yeah, that's it. Dominic leaned forward. Wasn't the victim a dyer? Like, the second son? She stiffened. That's right. The victim had been the younger brother of Darren Dyer. She hadn't even pieced that together until now. Her thoughts reeled. Did the police tell you any of that? Dominic asked. No, not really, she muttered, heart pounding. It was already overwhelming to find out that Ethan had saved her. Now, finding out the Dyers were involved? It was too much. Dominic could read the weight in her expression. He reached out gently, his hand nearing hers. Hey, don't worry. I'll help you figure all this out, whatever it takes. Thud. Ethan Walker appeared out of nowhere, his hand snapping around Dominic's wrist mid-motion. This case doesn't need any civilian interference, he said coldly. Dominic quickly stood up and pulled his hand away. Captain Walker. Come to pick up your assistant? Ethan didn't answer. His eyes were on Madeline, flushed and glassy-eyed from the wine. He let out a sigh, muttering, drinking again. Then, without another word, he helped her up and guided her to the car, leaving Dominic behind to stew in the awkward silence. The ride back was quiet, except for Madeline fidgeting in her seat, still buzzed, despite the blasting AC. Ethan glanced over. You okay? You seem restless. Madeline was tugging at the neckline of her blouse, cheeks glowing with heat. It's not the temperature, she said. It's you. You're just way too handsome. I can't handle it. Before he could respond, her hand slid over to rest squarely on his thigh. He tensed, nearly jerking the wheel. Whoa, Madeline, I'm driving. She didn't answer, just let her hand wander, brushing dangerously close to his waistband. His voice cracked. You've got to stop, or I swear. But I don't know how to undo this thing, she murmured, tugging at his belt. Damn it, Ethan cursed under his breath. He swerved suddenly, pulling the car into the parking lot of the nearest hotel. Click. The sound of the car doors locking echoed as he stepped out. When he turned around, Madeline was already sprawled across the bed inside. He approached slowly, the click of his shoes filling the silent room. He stopped by the edge of the bed, eyeing her with an unreadable expression. You know, I've let it slide a lot. I've never taken advantage, but if this is what you want— Shut up, she interrupted, rising to her knees on the mattress so she stood taller than him. Her arms wrapped around his neck. Their eyes locked. The tension in the room thickened. And then they kissed. Hard. Ethan didn't waste time. His belt was off in seconds, all self-control gone. I've been holding back since the car, he muttered between kisses. She grinned breathlessly. I've been holding back since that night at your house. By morning, Madeline woke up first. She slipped quietly into the bathroom to wash her face. As she looked into the mirror, the weight of everything returned. He'd lied. He knew he'd saved her, and said nothing. The anger started bubbling up again. Madeline stepped out of the bathroom and smacked Ethan Walker's bare chest with a damp hand. Wake up, We need to talk. The man under the covers, shirtless, only a sheet draped over his waist, groaned, brushing away the water droplets on his skin. Seriously, babe? You want to go for another round already? Madeline rolled her eyes. Number, I want to know why you never told me you were the one who saved me. Or that the victim was Darren Dyer's younger brother. That got his attention. Ethan's dark lashes lifted, revealing the full storm of his coffee-coloured gaze. He tossed an arm over his forehead, took a long breath, then finally said, So, the detectives told you? She nodded, lips tight. Ethan sat up, the muscles across his stomach shifting with the movement. His eyes met hers, steady and clear. I had my suspicions from the moment I saw the scar on your leg, he said, that you were at the crime scene that night. You hired me to be your assistant because of the case, she asked, brows furrowing in disbelief. He raised a hand quickly. Hold on. Before you get mad, hear me out. Madeline inhaled deeply, trying to stay calm. I kept you close so I could figure things out, Ethan continued. At first, I didn't know if you were tied to the killer or not, but after spending time with you, I believed in your innocence, completely. Still, belief isn't enough. Not in court. He leaned closer. That's why I had to remove you from the task force. I needed to investigate without bias, and I didn't want you getting hurt in the crossfire. I get it, she mumbled. I guess I just... Her voice trailed off. Ethan studied her carefully. What is it? I just needed to know, she whispered. When you said you loved me, did you mean it? He grinned softly, as if he'd read her mind. I've meant it from the start, he said. Whatever parts of this case are cloudy, my feelings for you never were. Her lips twitched into a smile. The tension between them dissolved. Ethan reached up, flicked her forehead with a teasing smirk. Seriously, you read that whole message thread with my mom and still doubted me? She blushed, flustered. How was I supposed to know it was your mom? You didn't even save her name in your contacts. I've had my parents' numbers memorized since I was 10. Just in case of an emergency. Madeline blinked. You memorized them? Of course. Ringing. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. He answered, and his tone shifted. Yeah, she's with me. Uh-huh. We're, having breakfast together. Yeah, I'll bring her back soon. Bye. He hung up, already searching the room for the clothes he'd tossed off the night before. As he buttoned his shirt, he said, All right, let's grab breakfast, then head back to the station. Madeline perked up. Wait, did something happen with the case? He nodded. We found your foster parents. They're being brought in for questioning now. As he fastened his belt, Madeline watched him from head to toe. Not long ago, this man was just the cold, hard-nosed captain she admired from afar. Now, he was entirely hers. Smirking, she leaned back and said, You know, you technically lied to your subordinates. What? I mean, when you said we were just out for breakfast. We're literally still in a hotel room. Ethan paused mid-motion, caught, then recovered with a grin. Well, we are about to eat, so technically I wasn't lying, just omitting the full truth. Wow, you'd make a hell of a witness, she teased. Later that morning, Ethan stood in the observation room of the precinct with several other officers. Behind the one-way mirror, two familiar faces sat at the interrogation table. People Madeline had once called her rescuers, but not anymore. They're staying completely silent, a young officer said, entering the room. Captain, should we switch tactics? I'll go, Madeline said softly, stepping forward. Everyone turned. You sure? Ethan asked. What's your approach? I'm not sure, she admitted. But I need to talk to them. I need to ask them myself. He hesitated for only a moment, then nodded. All right, do it your way. As she slipped under the covers, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Chris. Come over here with me. Emily blinked at the screen, a little startled. She had just brushed her teeth, flopped into bed, and was ready to knock out. But with a message like that, he must be lying awake, restless about tomorrow's plan. She quickly typed back. Almost asleep. You should get some rest too, don't overthink. Another message pinged instantly. Come here. Just 2 words, but something about it made her heart skip. Without thinking too hard, Emily kicked off the covers, slipped into her robe, and padded down the hall. She quietly knocked, then pushed open the door to Chris's room. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, in a plain tee and joggers, scrolling through something on his tablet. The moment he looked up, his face softened. I couldn't sleep, he admitted, placing the tablet aside. Too many moving pieces in this case. And thinking about you being involved, it's messing with my head. She walked over, sat beside him, and leaned against his shoulder. I'm not scared. You're the one who taught me to be brave. Chris turned to face her, reaching out to tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. Brave is one thing. Walking into the lion's den is another. I won't be alone. You and the team will be right there. I trust you. He smiled, small and tired. Even when I act like a total hard-ass in front of everyone? Emily giggled. Especially then. That's how I know you care. Chris sighed and looked down at their intertwined hands. I need you to promise me something. What is it? No matter what happens tomorrow, if things go sideways or if that bastard even tries to get close, run. Don't wait. Don't try to be the hero. I'll be smart, she said, eyes unwavering. But I'm not backing down. We're this close, Chris. His arms came around her then, pulling her into a firm, grounding embrace. He rested his chin atop her head, murmuring into her hair. God, you drive me crazy. I know, she whispered. But you love it. He chuckled. Yeah, I really do. That night, they didn't say much more. Just lay side by side, holding on to each other, as if the world might spin out of control at any second. Sleep came slowly, but it came, wrapped in the comfort of knowing they weren't facing any of it alone. Madeline's eyes widened, and she suddenly sat upright. Flustered, she typed back a quick reply. No way! That's too weird. Your office is at the far end of the admin wing and there's someone on duty. What if they see me sneaking into your room in the middle of the night? Come anyway, was all Jace texted back. Madeline clicked her tongue. Geez, he's persistent. At least give me a reason so I know what I'm walking into. She cracked the door open, peeked out, and tiptoed through the hallway like a thief. The young officer on night shift had his back turned, watching the front entrance. If she made the slightest noise, he'd probably turn around. When she got to Jace's door, she noticed it had already been left ajar. She darted inside and closed it behind her, exhaling a breath she'd been holding. What's with this risky behavior? That was nerve-wracking. Jace was resting his chin in his hand at the desk and replied, Not like this is your first time sneaking in. Yeah, but this is the first time without a real excuse, she countered, crossing her arms. He smirked and slid a small box onto the table. Here, this is the reason. She blinked. Your earbuds? Why are you giving me these? I've never given them to anyone else. Only you, he said. Her cheeks flushed. Is this a token of love or something? Still flustered, she didn't notice his next move until he gently patted his thigh. Come sit, I'll explain. Red-faced, Madeline mumbled something under her breath but did as told, perching herself carefully on his lap. The warmth radiating from his body against her back made her heart race. What is it? She asked hesitantly, looking down at her flushed, bashful face pressed so close Jace couldn't help teasing her. How about a kiss first, then I'll talk. The sky shifted from night to dawn. Outside, everything buzzed in preparation for departure. Dominic arrived at the precinct, glancing around at the flurry of movement. His eyes searched until they landed on Jace stepping out. Jace didn't even glance his way. Everyone, get ready. Double-check your gear and comms. Don't forget your backup tools, he commanded. Then came Madeline. She wore the ocean blue and white dress Mrs. Tran had bought her. When she stepped into the sunlight, it was like her hair shimmered in golden rays. The image was almost ethereal. Nick found himself staring. Jace walked straight up to her. You messaged Darius? Madeline nodded. In that elegant dress, even a nod from her seemed gentler than usual. I did. Let me know when you're ready. I'll call him out. Got it. I'll head out now. Keep your phone on, he said, and left with the team. Only a handful of officers remained at the precinct. Dominic used the moment to walk up to Madeline. So, when do we head out? He asked. She calmly took a seat. We wait for the team's signal. He sat beside her, obviously restless. Can I ask something? What's the actual plan? You lure Darius out. Then what? Why not just arrest him on the spot? Madeline gave a knowing smile. I'll tell you the full story after he's caught. Still curious, Dominic suggested. Want to go for a short drive while we wait? Get some air? She agreed, figuring a few minutes wouldn't hurt. They got into his car, chatting casually. Dominic kept glancing over and finally said, You look really pretty today. I don't see you wear your hair down often. She scratched her head bashfully and tried changing the subject. Thanks. By the way, at dinner the other night, how do you know I was talking about that drowning case from 10 years ago? I hadn't even finished my sentence. I was 15. That case was all over the news. Everyone in town knew, he replied quickly. Madeline paused, suspicious. But why'd you immediately assume it was that case? The police called it an accident. Dominic didn't respond. Instead, he smoothly shifted the topic. Where's that phone I gave you? You still using it? She pulled it from her bag. Right here. Still looks brand new. Without warning, he snatched it from her hands and, in one swift move, rolled down the window and threw it out. What? Dominic! What are you doing? That was my phone! She gasped. He simply smiled. Sorry, slipped. I'll buy you a new one tomorrow. Madeline stared at him in shock. That wasn't a slip. And as she looked around, the scenery outside felt wrong, unfamiliar, off. Where are we? Dominic, where are you taking me? He kept driving, totally calm. Relax, I won't hurt you. I'm taking you somewhere, where we can be alone. After over an hour, they stopped in front of a 4-story house, surrounded by nothing but overgrown weeds and empty land. Dominic walked around to open her door, gripping her wrist tightly. Not violently, but enough to stop her from running. She didn't try to escape, not yet. She needed to know what this childhood friend of hers was planning. Inside, she was seated on a couch. The place was modest but well kept, clearly owned by someone with money. Dominic took a short call, muttering things like, "We've arrived. Bring it now. The sooner the better." When he returned, he handed her a glass of water. All smiles, like nothing had happened. "Drink up." She refused. "Dominic, what are you doing? Why bring me here? And why destroy my phone?" He leaned back, folding his arms and legs. "No need to pretend. You know the truth now, don't you?" Madeline's breath caught. "Darius told me everything. The cops were at his house. Took those pictures for evidence. Funny, right? Of all days, I had to be in the background of that family selfie. In one photo of the Darius family at the beach 10 years ago, a teenage boy stood in the far back, holding a broken seashell, wearing a pale blue tee and a baseball cap. The exact same look as the person Madeline had seen drowning a boy back then. It was Dominic. "I guess you haven't told Jace it was me yet. Still protecting me, huh?" he said, almost lovingly. He held up his phone to show her a new picture, Darius, being arrested by the police. "So, does this count as misleading law enforcement?" Madeline said nothing, her eyes glued to the floor. "If you're still protecting me, then maybe that means you still love me," Dominic said. "We should just run away together." "You're not making any sense. You should turn yourself in," she snapped. Dominic's soft expression didn't change. "You want me arrested? I thought we were meant to be. We've known each other since we were kids. We met again by fate. Isn't that destiny?" "There's no such thing," Madeline said coldly. "You showing up again right after I escaped my adoptive parents. That wasn't fate. That was planned. You orchestrated it all, didn't you?" Madeline Carter blinked a few times. "What do you mean? I don't see how any of this is related." Noah Blake didn't hesitate. "That kid was only 10, and already a genius. If we didn't eliminate him then, he would have become a real problem later." "Wait, what? I still don't get it." "Think about it. Jared Hayes? Sure, he was just a rich, reckless brat, but his little brother? A prodigy. Fluent in 2 languages at 5, skipped grades at 7, and by 10 he was winning national math competitions. If he'd stayed alive, I wouldn't have stood a chance at that one scholarship to our dream prep school. My future would have been gone." Madeline sat there on the cold floor, chilled more by Noah's words than the tiles. People could be cruel, but this? After a long pause, she finally spoke. "So you killed him because you were afraid? Afraid you'd never measure up? Or was it just pride?" "Shut up!" Noah suddenly shouted. It was the first time she had seen him so furious, and it startled her. Realizing he'd scared her, he lowered his tone. "There's more to it. The Hayes family was too powerful. They needed to fall, just a little. If they stumbled, my family could finally stand on equal ground. 2 birds, 1 stone. Knock, knock." Just then, a knock came at the door. Noah smiled. "That must be the fake IDs. Once we have them, we're gone. Free." He reached for the door, confident. But as he turned the knob, he froze. Why had Madeline seemed too slow to catch on earlier? Something was wrong. He moved to slam the door shut, but it was too late. It burst open. Tactical officers flooded the room. Ethan Walker rushed straight to Madeline, removing her restraints. Officers pinned Noah to the floor. There was no escape. The man who brought the fake IDs had already been apprehended outside. "You're under arrest for murder and unlawful detainment," one officer stated as they cuffed him. Noah trembled, stunned by the sea of officers pointing weapons at him. "Number, how is this happening? This doesn't make sense." Ethan stepped up, looking him dead in the eye. "Wondering how we made it here so fast from the West Coast? Thought we were dumb enough to leak our plan to you?" He let out a small chuckle. "You really thought the task force was that sloppy?" Noah's eyes widened. This was a setup? He looked past Ethan to Madeline, who quietly swept her long bangs aside, revealing a small earpiece. "We recorded every word," Ethan said calmly. "Everything you said was transmitted and archived. Did you think you could really outrun the law?" Madeline had been silent for most of it, not because she was thinking, but because she was listening to Ethan through the comms. Noah's gaze turned sharp. So it was misdirection. "You tricked me, all of you." Tears welled in his eyes as he looked at her. "So you were the ace? I really thought you were protecting me. That maybe you had feelings." She met his stare coldly. I once saw you as a friend, but I never loved you. I never could, and I never will. Noah snapped. He lunged toward her, but officers immediately restrained him. I loved you, Madeline. I loved you, and you betrayed me, he screamed, his voice breaking as he was dragged out. Ethan turned to her, smile returning. You just closed the case of the year. Gotta say, I'm a little jealous. Madeline grinned and gave him a playful punch on the arm. Please, the whole team pulled this off. I just played my part. Ethan nodded. Let's head back. We've got a lot to wrap up. She trailed after him, quietly adding, After we finish, can we finally visit your mum? She's been blowing up my phone. Yeah, give me a few days. I'll take you down there myself. Oh, you're spoiling me again. He glanced over his shoulder with a wink. You earned it. Yes, Captain, we're on it. The young officers wiped the sweat from their brows and awkwardly dispersed before Ethan Walker could scold them again. Ethan looked around. With the room finally cleared, he approached the duty desk and lowered his voice. Did the DNA results come in? The junior officer nodded. Yes, sir. The lab just called. We can pick them up today. As they whispered, Madeline Carter emerged from the hallway, calling out, Are we heading out now, or what? The two officers jumped, startled. Ethan, caught off guard, needed a few seconds to recover. Oh yeah, I was just waiting for you. He patted the officer on the shoulder and walked over to Madeline. How'd it go with the suspect? She paused for a beat. There was something off earlier, but she shrugged it off. Noah's calmed down since his lawyer showed up. He even agreed to come clean and cooperate for a lighter sentence. Ethan raised an eyebrow, feigning a sulk. So you're still worried about him, huh? Madeline fought back a laugh and reached up to playfully pinch his cheek. That pouty face is too much. Right then, another officer walked by. Madeline quickly dropped her hands. Unfortunately, it was too late. The whole room saw the exchange. No one dared to say a word, but the looks they exchanged said plenty. It wasn't just Noah Blake being brought to trial. Jared Hayes was also under investigation as an accomplice. Without the influence of the older brother, the victim, it wouldn't have been possible. That perfect little brother had disrupted Jared's spoiled lifestyle and drawn more of his parents' affection, making sibling rivalry all too believable. Besides, Jared had only been 15 at the time, an age where chaos and impulsive decisions often collided. The courtroom was packed with interest from the public and press, though only a select few were allowed inside. Both the Blakes and the Hyaces were present, seated just a few feet from Ethan and Madeline. The defense and prosecution were locked in heated arguments. Madeline sat quietly, her eyes fixed on the proceedings, a deep and quiet sadness written in her expression. Ethan glanced sideways at her, then leaned in to whisper, Relax. Worst case, he gets life. Startled, Madeline shot him a look. Are you crazy? What kind of thing is that to say right now? Ethan shrugged, unfazed. I'm used to you yelling at me. He turned back, voice soft. I know you've shared a lot of memories with him. He never hurt you, and maybe part of you still hopes he won't suffer too much. But he crossed a line, and now he has to pay. Worrying won't change that. Madeline sighed, her voice low. I guess I'm just disappointed. But Ethan, I never saw Noah as more than a friend. That's the truth. I believe you, Ethan replied gently. It's not about jealousy. I just don't want you to carry the weight of this case too long. It's almost over. He reached over and took her hand, and for a moment, the courtroom noise faded into the background. His steady warmth, his presence, it grounded her. Still, there was something about Ethan this morning, some quiet mystery he hadn't shared, She debated whether to ask. After the hearing adjourned for the day, Ethan kept his promise and drove Madeline south to visit her foster family. He was secretly thrilled that his mom and Madeline got along so well. It made the idea of building a future together seem simpler. On the way, Madeline sat in the passenger seat, watching the trees blur past the window. She had tried to ignore it, but curiosity about Ethan's earlier behavior gnawed at her. After several miles of silence, she finally spoke up. "There's something I want to ask you." Ethan kept his eyes on the road. "Yeah? It's just. Have you been hiding something from me lately?" He chuckled nervously. "That's a strange question. I mean, you've been acting weird. Hot and cold. Secretive. Or maybe you're just overthinking it," he teased. Madeline stole a glance at him. He remained calm, focused on the drive, not answering. A long silence stretched between them. She didn't want tension just as they were arriving, so she forced a laugh. "Okay, forget it. Maybe I'm reading too much into things." Ethan didn't speak for a while, but just as they neared their destination, he asked quietly, "Have you ever wondered about your birth parents?" Madeline turned sharply toward him, wide-eyed. The question knocked the air out of her. She blinked several times, at a loss for words, like who they are, where they are, if they're doing okay. It took her a moment to find her voice. "Of course I've wondered. What kid wouldn't? Even if they abandoned me. I still want to meet them, at least once." "Don't say that," Ethan replied, his voice firm but warm. "I believe there was a reason they had to let you go. As long as you don't hate them, that's enough." Madeline simply nodded, not trusting herself to speak. She could feel the tears stinging the corners of her eyes. The car rolled to a stop in front of the Walker family estate as the evening light dimmed. The house lights flicked on, and the front gates opened slowly. Ethan looked over at her with a soft smile. "You ready?" She blinked again. "I guess." He got out and walked around to her side, opening the door and offering his hand. "Come on," he said. "There's something I've been meaning to give you." Madeline Carter forced a weak smile. "Yeah, of course I've wondered. What kid doesn't want to know who their real parents are? I've always dreamed of meeting them, just once. Even if they abandon me." "Don't say that," Ethan Walker replied gently. "I'm sure they had their reasons. I just hope you don't hold any hatred in your heart for them." Madeline only managed a soft, afraid that if she said anything more, she might not be able to stop herself from crying. Their car continued down a familiar road until it finally pulled up to the front gates of the Walker estate. Dusk had already settled over the sky. The butler, Mr. Bates, noticed Ethan's return and turned on the lights before slowly opening the gate. Ethan pressed the button to release his seatbelt, turned to Madeline, and smiled. "You ready?" She blinked. "Ready for what?" Without answering, Ethan stepped out and came around to open the door for her. Reflexively, she stepped out of the car, still clueless. One of Ethan's hands held a sleek black briefcase, while the other gently tugged on her hand. "Come on, I've got something special for you." Before Madeline could even respond, Ethan was already leading her across the garden courtyard. To her surprise, quite a few people were waiting. Some familiar from previous gatherings, others complete strangers. The entire Walker family was there, along with a handful of close family friends. And, of course, Chelsea Reed was there too, arms crossed and face scrunched, like she'd just smelled something sour. "What is going on?" Madeline glanced at the crowd, bewildered by the unexpected attention. Ethan brought her to the front and announced calmly, "She's here." All eyes turned to Madeline with an air of anticipation. Ethan opened his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "Here, take this." Madeline accepted it, confused. What kind of gift is this? She muttered under her breath. She stared at the heading, DNA test results. And there, at the bottom, was the line. 99.99% match. Direct biological relation with Madeline Carter. Her breath caught. She slowly raised her eyes to Ethan, silently begging for an explanation. He met her gaze with steady calm. I found your birth parents, he said. I'm sorry, what? I found them, he repeated. Do you want to meet them? Her mind went blank, equal parts joy and fear swirling in her chest. Can I? Really? All this time, Ethan added gently, when I told you I was working 2 investigations at once, this was the second one. She couldn't focus anymore. In front of everyone, she began pacing in small, anxious circles, wringing the paper in her hands. What do I say when I meet them? What if they don't like me? Maybe I should call first. No, that's weird, right? Oh God, is this too sudden? Ethan watched her pacing with a small smile. Seems like I'm not the only one who's nervous. Just then, the crowd parted, as everyone turned to look toward the entrance. A woman stood there. She was trembling, hands clasped over her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. She didn't even need to say a word. The moment Madeline looked into her eyes, her heart skipped a beat. Somehow, deep down, she knew. The woman walked slowly toward her, voice choked. Your eyes, they're just like mine. I've looked for you for 20 years. I never imagined they'd changed your name. Tears rolled down Madeline's cheeks as well. You were looking for me. Of course, the woman wept. But I didn't know your name was Madeline. Your name is Manon Lucky. Madeline repeated it softly, as if tasting the syllables for the first time. Lucky? My last name's Lucky. That's beautiful. Your father's going to be so happy, her mother said, pulling her into a tight embrace as the two sobbed together. Ethan stepped back, letting them have their moment. Nearby, Mrs. Walker and her best friend Manon's sister were beaming with joy. The realization hit. They were sisters, and their children were now romantically involved. Chelsea Reed muttered under her breath, clearly not happy with this twist of fate. Mrs. Lucky beckoned her over. What? She snapped. How is this even happening? Still grumpy, Chelsea refused to greet Madeline, arms still tightly crossed. Mrs. Walker and her sister were too busy laughing. Looks like we're going to be in-laws, one of them said cheerfully. So now we're family, the other replied. Chelsea, as expected, threw a fit. I'm not calling her anything ever. He opened the box with a soft click. Inside was a delicate, brilliant diamond ring, shimmering under the twinkling garden lights, with flower petals still falling around them. His voice was warm, steady, or should I say, Manonlucky. My little light, will you marry me? Will you give me the chance to keep loving you, protecting you, cherishing you for the rest of our lives? Madeline's lashes fluttered, and then she nodded. One simple, glowing nod that sent the whole crowd erupting in cheers and applause. Sometime later, she officially moved in with her biological parents and began a new chapter of life, filled with long overdue love and warmth. Her childhood in the orphanage and those lonely days locked away in the Green household now felt like a distant memory. As for the infamous case that had started it all, after several rounds of hearings, both Noah Blake and Jared Hayes were sentenced to 15 years in prison. At the time of the crime, both were under 16, so the harshest legal penalties didn't apply. Still, the complexity and psychological depth of the case made it a benchmark. It became a permanent case study for law enforcement trainees, an example of both tragedy and excellent investigative work. With his wedding approaching and a future family to care for, Ethan Walker was reassigned to a precinct in the Southern District, closer to home. He was already under consideration for promotion, very likely to earn a higher rank within the year. Their wedding was lavish, twice over. The first ceremony took place in the city centre, graced by government officials, high-ranking police officers, elite business partners, and socialites from the Walker family's circles. The second was more intimate, just family and close friends, but no less grand. Mrs. Walker spared no expense. Even among other upper-class brides, Madeline's wedding became the talk of the season, envied and admired. Soon after, Madeline moved into the Walker estate permanently. The home felt just as warm and welcoming as it had the first time she stepped foot in it. Her relationship with her future mother-in-law remained close and heartfelt. Every evening, when Ethan came home from work looking tired, Mrs. Walker would press small things into Madeline's hands. "Take this," she'd whisper conspiratorially. "He always says he's exhausted." "Mom," Madeline would protest, "we're not doing anything. You're acting weird." "You want me to get upset? Just take it." Madeline would sigh, finally giving in, only for Ethan to walk through the door moments later. Startled, she hid the box behind her back, her smile forced and way too guilty looking. "I'm home," Ethan greeted her, giving her a look. "What were you and Mom whispering about like two criminals?" Her face paled. Nothing. But you couldn't hide secrets from the head of investigations." Ethan stepped over, pulled the box from behind her back, and stared at it, confused. Performance supplements?" Mrs. Walker let out a fake cough and quickly slipped away. "Oh, look at that. I think your dad's calling me upstairs." Ethan glanced between the bottle and Madeline, feigning a stern tone. "You think I'm that out of shape I need these?" She scratched her head. "No, it's a misunderstanding." He didn't argue. He just tossed the bottle on the table, then scooped her up effortlessly over his shoulder. "Hey, put me down!" Ignoring her protest, he carried her up the stairs. "You think I've lost my edge? 'Cause I've been working late, huh? Guess I'll have to prove otherwise. No alcohol needed." "You're insane!" she cried, flustered. They'd been intimate before, but back then she'd been drunk, bolder than usual. Now, fully sober and carried away by the moment, she was blushing from head to toe. Ethan placed her gently onto their bed, eyes soft but burning with focus. Carefully, he peeled off his police uniform and braced himself above her, his body shielding hers. "Let me show you just how strong your husband really is," he whispered, lips brushing her collarbone. Madeline's slender fingers threaded into his hair as her breath began to quicken. "You don't have work early tomorrow, right?" "Nope," he replied, kissing his way lower. "Tonight, I only have one mission, pampering my wife." His hand slid under her shirt, caressing her waist with slow, deliberate care. "I'm going to take care of you," he murmured, "every night, until you agree to give me a baby." Dear listeners, today's emotional love story comes to a close. If it touched your heart, please don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel to support our team in bringing more tender, unforgettable stories to life. Wishing you endless joy, gentle days, and a heart always filled with love. Until we meet again in the next story, take care and stay inspired.